of our California beaches, but because our oceans are so important to all life here on Earth. In school, I recently learned that our oceans make it possible for us to live here on Earth. For instance, did you know that almost 70% of the oxygen we breathe is produced by our ocean's algae? 70%, wow! Without our oceans, we couldn't breathe. Not only do our oceans have a major influence on both the Earth's weather and regional climates, but our oceans are also home to a wide variety of life, as well as different types of ecosystems. Just so we're clear, an ecosystem is a fancy word which refers to a unit area where the animals and plants and really small organisms called microorganisms interact with the physical environment, like the water, sun, soil, and rocks, in such a way that they are all interdependent and self-sufficient. Examples of some of our ocean's ecosystems are rocky reefs, rocky intertidal zones, the deep ocean, and my favorite of all, the wet and wonderful wetlands along our shore. Do you know why wetlands are my favorite ecosystem? That's because wetlands are known as to be one of the most biologically diverse ecosystems in the world. The term biologically diverse simply means that it contains a wide variety of living organisms, such as plants and animals. Today I plan to discover what they are, why they're so important, why they're in trouble, and what can I do to help protect them. Hey, I've got a great idea. Why don't you come with me? To answer all these questions, we'll go on a scientific expedition to explore some of our local wetlands here in Southern California and meet scientists and resource managers. Come on, let's go. Here we are, the Coal Oil Point Reserve, located 6 miles north of Santa Barbara. It's an area protected since 1970. It's maintained and operated by the University of California's Natural Reserve System. Isn't this absolutely breathtaking? Today we have the pleasure of meeting Dr. Christina Sandoval, the manager for this reserve. Christina, could you please tell me and my friends who are viewing this video, what are the wetlands?
Sure. Wetlands are a very special habitat, so I'm happy to explain to you. Wetlands are pretty much any large or even small body of water that sustain water for a reasonable amount of time. For example, the ocean is a very, very large wetland. But even a small pool or a pond, a river or a creek, all of those are wetlands. And wetlands are very special to us to protect because they support a large number of plant life and animal life that only occurs on that type of habitat.
What kind of wetlands do we have here along California's coastlines?
Sure. We have here in the coast of California two very typical wetlands, which are places that retain water. The two of them are sloughs and estuaries. Estuaries are wetlands that remain open throughout the year, so there is fresh water input from rivers on the up part of the wetland, and this wetland empties into the ocean, so it receives salt water during the high tides. The slough, on the other hand, does not open to the ocean all the time. It closes with a sandbar. So it's usually a much smaller wetland, and it can be very salty because with the mouth of the slough closed, the water evaporates and concentrates that salt into the slough. What you see behind me, it's a classic example of a slough.
Christina, what is your job here at the Coal Oil Point Reserve? And what did you study to become the manager?
Oh, very good question. I do a lot of different things as a manager of Coal Point Reserve, but most of my job is to support people interested in the natural world, plants and animals, to come here and study and learn about the reserve and its habitats. So when I started this job in the reserve, there was one bird that lives on the beach and nests right on the beach, and it's called the snowy plover. There are only about 1,000 individuals left of this bird in the Pacific coast of United States. And here was in my job was to protect this animal. My parents helped me determined that the type of school I need to go with and the type of field that I need to study is biology. So when I was still in Brazil as a young kid, I went to do my college degree in biology, and I was really fascinated by it. There's just so much interesting things to learn and discover. I hope this conversation that we had together is going to be stimulating and encouraging to you to become a reserve manager or a biologist one day. It's really fun to spend time with nature.
Now that we know what wetlands are, what types of wetlands we have along our California coastlines, and what variety of plants and animals can live here, let's travel 51 miles south of here, back to where we started in Ventura County, to explore another of our Southern California wetlands known as Ormond Beach. This is Rich Hanley, and he is the manager of the part of Ormond Beach owned by the Nature Conservancy, a nonprofit organization committed to protecting and conserving some of the most biologically important areas in the world.
It is so beautiful out here.
Why are the wetlands so important to us and the ocean?
Well, they serve quite a few vital functions. One of the things that they do is they serve as a filter for stormwater that runs down from the cities, and the plants of the wetlands actually soak up pollution before the water can enter the ocean, so it gets clean. Another thing that wetlands do is that they serve as a nursery for most of the fish in the ocean. Almost 70% of all the fish that live in the ocean use wetlands at one time or another for hatching their young and raising them, and then they go back out into the ocean after a year or so. Another one of the things is it provides habitat for all kinds of birds. Out here at these wetlands here at Ormond Beach, there's probably 300 different species of birds that live out in these wetlands at one time or another. And it's along the Pacific Flyway, so when the birds come in on their migration, they stop here and they land in the wetlands, and then they get to rest and feed, and then they go along on their way.
That's cool. Our coastal wetlands have plants that can filter out pollutants before they can drain into the ocean. They're home to a wide variety of plants and animals, and also serve as a buffer zone from flooding, from tidal waves, and from hurricanes. Nature rocks! Let's take a closer look at this habitat we call the wetlands. Let's get right in there with a really unique ecosystem. What do you see? I'll tell you what I see. What I see is nature's way of protecting our coastlines from erosion through the ability of wetlands to control flooding by assimilating the excess water, like sponges. What I see? A perfectly balanced ecosystem that supports a great diversity of wildlife, such as fish, birds, terrestrial mammals, and reptiles. What I see is nature's nursery, providing a habitat for literally thousands of species of aquatic and terrestrial plants and animals, 41 of which are endangered species. And you know what else I see? I see a really unique recreation area for outdoor enthusiasts, like us. I think now would be a great time to meet Nancy Peterson. Nancy's in charge of restoring the wetlands at the city of Oxnard's Ormond Beach. That means she's helping to return these wetlands to their natural state. Nancy, could you please tell us why the wetlands in Southern California are in trouble?
The wetlands in Southern California are in trouble. For a very long time, the wetlands were seen as cheap, easily paved over land that could be used for heavy industry, they could be used for agriculture, for crops that weren't as profitable as some others. They were seen as areas that had no value to anyone, so they could be used for whatever was not wanted elsewhere.
And what did this area look like before you restored it?
Before we started restoring Ormond Point, this area was an illegal dumping ground. We had everything from chunks of concrete, chunks of asphalt, we had trash, we had construction debris. We had anything that was not wanted elsewhere, it would be dumped here because this was an area no one watched, no one took care of it, and no one valued it. The asphalt that we took out of here was actually ground up and used to patch Perkins Road. We found so much of the concrete that they did the same thing with that as well and used it for repairs on other parts of the roadway.
Nancy, how are you restoring these wetland areas?
Well, at Ormond Point, the land is owned by the city of Oxnard. They lease it to us for $1 a year as an educational facility for students like yourself. You would come out here, you would pull non-native vegetation, which are weeds and plants that don't belong here. You would then dig holes, choose the plants that are going to go in from our native plant nursery, and once you've planted them, you would be watering them and making sure that they have a really good start. That's how we're going to restore this land, one plant at a time, done by children like yourself. Without the help of all the children who have been out here, Ormond Point would not have been able to restore our first acre. We're now working on our second acre and a half, and this has taken us a little over 1.5 years to get here. So we have a 10-year plan, and at the end of that we hope that all this land will look the way it should, and it'll be a miniature version of what the rest of Ormond Beach will look like when it's done.
Unfortunately though, even with the help of people like Christina Sandoval, Rich Hanley, Nancy Peterson, and others, the importance of our wetlands have not always been understood nor appreciated. The School of Biological Sciences at the University of California at Irvine recently reported the following alarming statistics. They've estimated that nationwide, we in the United States have lost 50% of our wetlands. But for us living here in Southern California, that statistic climbs to a staggering 95 to 97%. That's right, between 95 and 97% of our wetlands here in Southern California are gone. That's why it's so important for all of us to be informed, to do whatever you can to both protect our remaining wetlands and help rebuild the ones we can. What's that you said? What can we do to help protect these important habitats? I'm so glad you asked, because there's a whole lot of things we can do, both individually and together to help protect these valuable resources. And the two perfect people to tell us what those things are oceanographers Shannon Newby and Rocio Lozano Knowlton. They coordinate the Morito Academy program. So Shannon, what can we do to protect the wetlands?
Well, Sierra, you can help because anything you see on the streets ends up here in the wetlands and then in the ocean. So if you see trash, pick it up and don't litter. And you can also help by recycling. You can recycle plastic bags or your soda cans or glass bottles or hard plastic. Even the oil from the cars can be recycled. And you can also help by being involved in restoration projects like the ones we have with the Morito Academy.
Thanks, Shannon. And Rocio will tell us what the Morito Academy is all about.
So the Morito Academy program is a multicultural education program on marine sciences and conservation for students like you, 4th through 8th grade level, who are curious and adventurous and want to learn about nature. The Morito Academy program is an initiative of the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary to serve multicultural students from Ventura and Santa Barbara counties, which is part of NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, in partnership with Channel Islands Marine Resource Institute and the Nature Conservancy. These organizations collaborate with many other groups, agencies, cities, schools, and primarily your teachers or after-school program leaders. And then we take you out on field trips, and we do beach cleanups and restoration and take you to the Channel Islands. And the whole goal is that you fall in love with the ocean and habitats, important habitats such as the wetlands, so that we can all contribute together to protect them, because this is our home and we want to make sure we have one for the future.
Thanks for all that info. I learned a great deal. Now it's up to us to put those ideas to work. Whoa, the surf's back, and that means I have to go. Remember, respect, protect, and care for our environment. It's the only one we have. Ciao!